Здравствуйте, товарищи. Welcome back to Russian Through Propaganda. Today is day 28, and we're looking today at passive construction. So obviously we've seen a bit already about how uh, we can use a reflexive particle to create verbs that are passive in meaning. And to get an idea of what we're talking about, look at this poster. This is for Muscle Prom, store in the middle of Moscow back in Soviet times. And we could ask, we see a list here of products they sell, and sort of in answer to the question, что продается в Muscle-Proме, right? What is sold at Muscle-Prom? Okay, so продаваться, as we saw yesterday, means to be sold, and that comes from the verb продавать. Продавать, продать is the pair from the imperfective продавать, to sell. We get продаваться, to be sold, and here we're using it in the present tense. Что продается? Что продается в Muscle-Proме? Now, that is a truly passive construction. We talked about that already. That reflexive form of the verb here is, in this case, to be understood passively, right? Something is being sold. And of course, you could say that in Russian, but there's another way to express the same idea that in spoken Russian is more common. You could ask simply, что продают? Что продают в Muscle-Proме? Okay, what is that form? Well, we can see clearly that it's a transitive form. There's no reflexive particle. And so it's not passive, it's an active form, right? What do they sell, literally? So all we're doing there is using the они form of the verb, right? Продают, they sell. And then here we have the question, что продают? They sell what? What do they sell? Okay, so it's really important to note that that construction, что продают, strictly speaking, is not passive, right? It's not. It doesn't have the reflexive particle. It's different grammatically from the question, что продается, which is truly passive. But we people often speak of these constructions as a third plural, a third plural passive, sort of in quotation marks, meaning that although it's not grammatically passive, it kind of carries the sense of a truly passive construction in the sense that it doesn't focus on the person doing the action, right? We have this kind of anonymous они, right? By the way, we usually don't include the они. We don't include a pronoun even. We just simply use the verb form продают, right? The they form of the verb. They sell. What do they sell at Muscle-Prom? Right? So again, there's no real subject there. The emphasis is on the action itself, and then on the whatever the object is, and so forth, not on a sort of active subject. So if we look at similar examples here, right? Look at a truly passive verb. Здесь продается икра, right? Caviar is sold here. Okay, so that's clearly a passive construction in the strictest sense. So can you say that? Of course, you can say it. Often, though, sort of like in English, caviar is sold here, right? It sounds a little bit formal, perhaps, right? I mean, even in English, we'd often say something like, "Yeah, they sell caviar here," or something of that nature. Uh, so quite often, again, the truly passive constructions sound a little bit too stilted or artificial or something. And so again, in speech, you're more likely to hear the third plural passive, quote unquote, right? Здесь продают икру. Literally, they sell caviar here. But note again, we're not including the pronoun, right? Simply продают and not они продают. Okay, so one use of this third plural passive, quote unquote, is to tell just what people do. That's one sense in which you hear this very often. For example, let's think about what they do in Russia, what one does in Russia, what those Russians do over in Russia, right? Just to describe kind of customs, habits, and things like that. For example, в России говорят по-русски. Literally, they in Russia they speak Russian, right? Uh, Again, kind of another way of saying Russian is spoken in Russia. But again, the active они form говорят по-русски. They speak in the Russian manner. Or, for example, в России пьют чай и едят икру. In Russia, they drink tea and eat caviar, right? That's just what they do kind of by habit. We could look at another common example. What is a furtочка? Что такое форточка? Well, a furtочка is a little kind of a little pane in a window that opens independently to let in a breeze, right? You could call it a draft window or something in English, perhaps. So traditionally, right before air conditioning, this would be an easy way in the summer to, get a little fresh air into a room that's otherwise, well, as they say, dushna. Dushna is one of those adverbs we learned to express how you're feeling. Dushna means it's stuffy. Dushna. And that's a fairly common thing you hear in Russia, especially in the summer, right? Dushna means it's stuffy, and we could connect that with the dative and say something like мне душно, I feel stuffy, or нам душно. So let's ask a quick question. Что делают в России, когда душно или жарко? Okay, there's our third plural, sort of pseudo-passive, right? What do they do in Russia when it's stuffy or hot? Форточку открывают. They open the форточка, this little vent window. Что такое форточка? Right? What the heck is a форточка? What is that? Форточка – это небольшое окно, которое открывается, когда душно. Okay, now here we're using a truly passive construction, and that's perhaps somewhat more appropriate here because we're giving a definition, right? So we're giving this kind of formal definition of what is a форточка. So in this type of context, a truly passive construction is perfectly appropriate, right? A форточка is a not big window, meaning a rather small window, which is opened, right? Которая открывается, когда душно, right? Which is opened when it is stuffy. Открыть форточку очень просто и легко. It's very simple and easy to open a форточка. Можно, конечно, и все окно открыть, если очень душно. Right? It's possible, of course, to open the entire window or the whole window, все окно, если очень душно, if it's really stuffy, но так обычно не делают. Okay, there's our third plural, pseudo-passive, right? Так обычно не делают. They don't usually do thusly, right? Так, they don't do that. They don't do, I guess literally so. They don't do thusly, usually. Okay. Yeah, so another thing you want to avoid when you open the форточка, you have to be careful because you could have a сквозняк, and that basically means a draft of cold air that could, cause you to catch cold and eventually die, of course, right? So for understandable reasons, right, given the Russian winter, Russians are often very sensitive to cold and they're a bit paranoid sometimes about it. So they dress very warmly and they try to avoid the dreaded сквозняк. By the way, even nowadays, now that in office buildings and restaurants and so forth, even in some apartments, you're starting to see some small air conditioning units, but a lot of Russians don't really like them very much. And they especially don't like to sit near them because, again, you're getting the сквозняк, so to speak, right? This kind of stream of cold air that is unpleasant or potentially deadly. Okay, anyway, so let's look at a few examples. This is kind of discussion material, more or less, but let's just give a few examples to tell what people do in Russia. Вопрос. Что едят в России? Okay, what do they eat in Russia? Okay, let's answer and say, в России едят, and now we need to supply a direct object, so let's review our accusatives. Okay, in Russia they eat caviar. В России едят икру, шоколад, right, chocolate, колбасу, sausage. Что еще едят в России? What else do they eat in Russia? В России едят рыбу, мясо и картошку. Картошку. By the way, картошка is one of those forms we've mentioned briefly. It's singular only in Russian, right? So potatoes typically is a singular only noun, which may strike us as a bit odd. We'll talk more about that topic later, but generally Russians count, they consider a lot of things like berries and grains, and in this case, even potatoes that have some kind of a granular quality to them, meaning you have kind of, I don't know, for example, a bag full of potatoes and you kind of spill them out onto the table or whatever it is you're doing, right? And anyway, that's why they tend to be thought of as singular only. The way we would talk about grain or maybe corn or things like that in English. Okay, so anyway, we'll return to that topic later. Что пьют в России? What do they drink in Russia? Okay, more accusatives. В России пьют воду. Vodu. Now note the unusual shift stress there. That's very unusual. Vodu, водку, квас, вино. Что еще пьют в России? What else do they drink in Russia? В России пьют чай, кофе, пиво и шампанское. Шампанское is a neuter adjective, right, that can stand alone as a noun. So look at that ending, шампанское. We can tell it's a neuter adjective. And remember, once an adjective, always an adjective, right? So the accusative of that is шампанское. Как отдыхают в России? How do they relax in Russia? What do they do to relax? Okay, now we can practice some verbs, again, using this so-called pseudo-passive, right? Just the third plural form of the verb to say what they do in Russia when they're trying to relax. Как отдыхают в России? В России, so let's say they prepare shish kebabs or they cook shish kebabs. This is kind of like the Russian version of barbecuing, right? You take a rather simple barbecue contraption, grill contraption called a mangal, usually off into a park or the woods or something, and you make shish kebabs. Okay, so let's say в России готовят, right? Third plural, right? Remember, it's like они готовят, but we don't include the они in these constructions. В России готовят шашлык, accusative. In Russia, they watch soccer or hockey. В России смотрят футбол или хоккей. By the way, football is always soccer in Russia, right? What Americans call soccer. To talk about American football, that would be, take a wild guess, Amerikansky football, right? So don't confuse those two sports. Okay, let's say in Russia they read classical literature, of course. В России читают классическую литературу. Okay, there's our feminine accusative. And let's say in Russia they stroll around the city. Remember that по takes the dative. В России гуляют по городу. Гуляют по городу. Okay, let's ask whom they read in Russia, right? So again, what authors are read in Russia? Кого читают в России? Okay, let's think for a moment. These are all referring to people, so all of these are animate. Now, since these are all singular, of course, that's only really going to matter for the masculine ones, right? All of these are masculine animate, so we've got to treat those as if we've got to make their accusative forms look like genitive forms. But remember, for feminine nouns, including people's names, it's ada, u, yata, you in the accusative. So let's say in Russia they read Pushkin. В России читают Пушкина. Кого еще? Who else? Ахматову читают, right? They read Akhmatova. There's a feminine example. And by the way, we will read quite a bit of Akhmatova at the end of book 2. В России читают, okay, let's say they read Dostoevsky. Now look at his name. It's an adjective. Once an adjective, always an adjective, right? But he's masculine, animate. So we're going to get a genitive, again, what looks like a genitive ending. Dostoevskого. В России читают Dostoevskого. Tolstoy is the same case, an adjective, although it is in-stressed. Tolstoy. В России читают Толстого. Okay, there is another author you may not have heard of, more recent, Tatiana Tolstaya. Okay, so she has the same name as the old famous Tolstoy, Lev Tolstoy. Okay, but once an adjective, always an adjective. Tolstaya in the accusative, right? We're reading her, will be Толстую. В России читают Толстую. Okay, Tsvetaeva, another female name, right? We'll read Tsvetaeva at the end of book 2 as well. В России читают Tsvetaevu. Mayakovsky, another adjective. We'll read him at the end of book 2. He's a very famous Soviet poet and propagandist. В России читают Маяковского. В России читают Чехова. Chekhov. В России читают Bulgakova. A lot of people new to Russia have not heard of Bulgakov. Mikhail Bulgakov. His best known work is a novel called The Master and Margarita. In Russian, Master и Margarita. If you haven't heard of that or haven't read it, then I must command you to run, not walk, to your nearest bookstore and order The Master and Margarita. It's one of those novels that I think is just universally adored. I've never met anyone who didn't love it. So you owe it to yourself to read it. Okay, anyway, Platonov. В России читают Platonova. That's Andrei Platonov. He's another author, Soviet-era author who's direly underappreciated. His best-known work is probably Kotlovan in Russia, which means the foundation pit. So that's another book that I'd highly recommend you check out, although you've likely never even heard of it. Okay, let's look at a few sayings. And by the way, these posloviцы, these folk sayings we keep spitting out, often when Russians are citing one of those, they'll say something like "как говорится," right? Literally, as is said, right, with a passive construction, right? Or "как говорят," that would be the equivalent, right? Using this so-called pseudo-passive, as they say, right? So you can see why that's a typical way to introduce one of these famous quotations or folk proverbs, right? So you may hear me saying that from time to time in class. Как говорится или как говорят. So, как говорится или как говорят, нет худа без добра. There's no bad without good, right? Two genitives there, худо and добра, meaning every cloud has a silver lining. Кого люблю, того и бью. Whom I love, I beat, right? Yeah, that's rather odd, right? But the basic sense is that a little tough love is better than indifference, right? You would only beat or be cruel to someone who you care about in some sense, right? So the idea is sort of indifference is perhaps sometimes more cruel than cruelty itself. Okay, anyway, Бог дал, Бог и взял. God gave and God has taken, right? The good Lord giveth, the good Lord taketh away. Ни рыба, ни мясо, neither fish nor meat. Sort of like in English, neither fish nor fowl, meaning someone's neither this, that, or the other. They're just kind of nothing special. Попытка, не пытка. There's a really common one, right? A попытка is an attempt, and пытка means torture or torment, right? So the idea is it doesn't hurt to try, meaning an attempt isn't torture. Here's a funny one. Курица не птица, Польша не за граница. A chicken isn't a bird, and Poland isn't abroad. Okay, so that has a rather troubled geopolitical backstory there. Of course, following the partitions of Poland, Russia occupied Poland for a long time, and then, of course, the Soviet Union also, Poland fell under its sway after World War II. Anyway, we could talk all day about the history there, but basically, the idea, at least for Russians, when I first heard this, they explained it looking back to Soviet times, meaning that a Russian could possibly travel within the Soviet bloc, like maybe to Poland or some Eastern European country, but for them it just wasn't quite the same as going outside the USSR, right, which was much more difficult, right? So that's one way to interpret this saying. Спасибо не булкает. Thank you doesn't make bubbling sounds. So булкать means the sound that when you're pouring vodka, or any liquid, I suppose. So this means something like Just saying thanks isn't enough. I need some more palpable show of gratitude, maybe like a bottle of vodka or something. Спасибо не булкает. Okay, so let's translate a few sentences using these. Again, we can call them maybe pseudo-passive constructions, right? Just third plural verb forms. What do they do in Russia when it's stuffy? Что делают в России, когда душно? Well, they open the vent window. Открывают форточку, right? They open. Открывают форточку. Remember not to include the они in these examples. Number two, what do they do when it's hot? А что делают, когда жарко? They drink water or kvass. Пьют воду или квас. What do they drink in Russia when it's cold? Что пьют в России, когда холодно? Well, again, this is in response to a question, so we don't really need to repeat the verb, but if we did, it would be, again, pьют. Да? Пьют чай или водку. What do they eat when they drink vodka? А что едят, когда пьют водку? Again, no need to repeat the verb, but it would be едят. Едят черный хлеб, огурцы и другие закуски. So другие закуски there is in the plural. That means other snacks. So a закуска can mean any kind of snack, but it often implies snacks had with vodka. 5. What do they do in Russia when they want to dance? Что делают в России, когда хочется танцевать? Right, when they get the urge to dance. Хочется танцевать. Well, they dance, of course. Танцуют, конечно. Танцуют. Да? Когда танцевать хочется, right, танцуют. Okay, let's look at a couple of verbs that always include the reflexive particle. And we mentioned a couple of these examples the other day. In these cases, it doesn't always make sense to think what the reflexive particle means. It's just kind of there. It's always attached to the verb. These verbs we're going to work with today always include the reflexive particle. So we should just kind of learn it as part of the verb. And in some cases like this, again, maybe not insist too much on understanding some kind of a literal meaning. In some cases, it may just be kind of an idiomatic Russian expression now that doesn't really necessarily make any kind of literal sense. So, for example, nравится, понравится is a very common verb. It means sort of to like. So we're going to use it to translate the English verb to like. But again, we're going to have to use a very different idiom because the verb nравится means literally something more like to be pleasing to. At least that construction allows us to set up a dative, right? Because this verb takes the dative, right? So we're going to follow it up with a dative to say to whom something is pleasing. Now, if we think about why this is going to be so confusing, again, it's one of these cases where it's sort of the opposite of the English, right? So if we say in English, I like milk, right? I like milk. Well, in the Russian, we're going to say milk is pleasing to me, right? So it's sort of the object and the subject are swap places, and we have to be very careful, right? So again, this is a really useful tip. If you learn nравится as meaning to be pleasing to, then the meaning is still obvious, but also the Russian construction is much more, is much clearer, right? So look at some examples. I like kvass. Okay, what we're really going to be saying in Russian is more like kvass is pleasing to me. That gives us мне нравится kvass. Right, so nравится is just an E verb. Fairly easy to conjugate, although we'll look at that more in a moment. I like to read. Okay, here we're using an infinitive as a subject. To read is pleasing to me. Мне нравится читать. Right there, читать is the infinitive is actually acting as the subject. To read is pleasing to me. So nравится is usually used to talk about kind of likes and dislikes, right? If you want to talk about really liking something, or as we say in English, loving something, then you can use the Russian verb for to love, любить, right? So you can say things like я люблю квас, я люблю читать, right? I love a thing, I love kvass, or I love to read. Look at a quick poster here. Соус майонез. Тебе нравится майонез? Тогда тебе понравится жить в России. Там очень любят майонез. Right? Is mayonnaise pleasing to you? Right? Do you like mayonnaise Well, in that case, you're going to like to live in Russia, right? To live in Russia will please you, will be pleasing to you, right? You're going to like it. Там очень любит майонез, right? There, they really love mayonnaise. And there again is one of those pseudo-passive, right? Third plural things, любит, right? They really love mayonnaise in Russia. They use it in a lot of traditional salads, which are usually just various things chopped up and served in, mixed with mayonnaise. Okay, so let's ask a few questions. These are discussion questions, but again, we would keep these things in the nominative, right? Or just keep the unchanged infinitive, because again, these are the subjects of our Russian sentence. So for example, тебе нравится литература? What's the subject? Well, of course, it's literatura, right? Is literature pleasing to you? Let's ask some more questions. Тебе нравится балет? Тебе нравится опера? Тебе нравится кино? Тебе нравится майонез? Тебе нравится кетчуп? Ketchup, obviously. Тебе нравится шоколад? Тебе нравится борщ? Тебе нравится футбол? Тебе нравится хоккей? Тебе нравится баскетбол? Тебе нравится пинг-понг? Or a few infinitives, right? Тебе нравится читать поэзию? Okay, so translated literally, is to read poetry pleasing to you, right? To read poetry is pleasing. Тебе нравится петь? Do you like to sing? Тебе нравится учиться? Do you like studying, being a student? Тебе нравится готовить? Do you like to cook? Тебе нравится танцевать? Do you like to dance? Тебе нравится работать? Тебе нравится смотреть телевизор? Тебе нравится говорить по телефону? Do you like speaking on the telephone? Okay, so let's work some more with this verb. It's extremely useful, extremely common, as you can imagine. Also a little bit tricky. First, because of the idiom, and also because we have to learn to conjugate it. It's a reflexive verb, so there's kind of a lot going on with this verb. But it's definitely one you should insist on learning thoroughly because it's so common. So we just saw some examples of using nravится, the imperfective, to talk about sort of ongoing, permanent likes and dislikes, right? Now, as you might guess, we can use понравится to talk about sort of one-time impressions, right? Like you could say things like, well, I like caviar, but I didn't like that caviar last night at the buffet or whatever, right? Let's look at some examples. Мне всегда нравился квас. I've always liked kvass, right? There's the imperfective past tense, right? Kvass has always been pleasing to me. Now, more specifically, right, narrow context, мне очень понравился квас вчера. I really liked the kvass yesterday. It really pleased me. Okay, some more examples. Эта книга мне так понравилась. I like this book so much. Again, книга is the subject. And again, we're describing just sort of our one-time impression about a book we've read or something. Попробуй квас, тебе понравится. Try the kvass, it will please you. Perfective, you'll like it. Твой новый друг мне сразу понравился. Your new friend pleased me instantly, meaning I took an instant liking to him. And you see how that's kind of a momentary first impression type thing. It's clearly very different from an imperfective situation. Боря и Лена тебе понравятся. Same idea in the plural. You're going to like Borja and Lena. By the way, use an imperfective. We'll talk about this more in book 3, but if you want to ask whether or not anyone's ever done something, ever at all, right? We're not focused on did they finish it or did they not finish it, but just simply on the simple fact of whether they've watched it or not. For example, ты смотрел этот фильм? Have you ever watched this film? Again, the imperfective there is asking an at all question. Have you watched this film ever, at all, with no focus on whether or not they finished it? Да, смотрел. Мне очень понравился, right? And then you use a perfective to say, I really liked it. It's kind of your impression upon watching the film. As opposed to, ты пробовал икру? Она тебе понравилась или нет? Right? So there's the imperfective. Have you tried caviar? Ты пробовал икру? And then the follow-up, well, did you like it or not? Assuming you have tried it. Она тебе понравилась или нет? Right? Did you like it or not when you tried it? Now again, we could also ask, она тебе нравится или нет? Meaning more generally, do you like it generally or not? Okay, let's fill in a few blanks here. My friend likes Russian cinema. Okay, again, in the Russian, we're going to need to flip that around and say, Russian cinema is pleasing to my friend. Now remember, that'll be the construction regardless of the Russian word order. In fact, the subject will, as we know, will often be saved for the end. And that's what we see here in the first couple of examples. Моему другу нравится русское кино. Russian cinema is pleasing to my friend. Ему нравится. He liked the Russian movie we watched yesterday. Okay, this is a narrow context. This is a one-time impression we're talking about. And the subject is film, right? Movie. Ему очень понравился русский фильм, который мы вчера посмотрели. My sister always liked to read Russian literature. Okay, this is an ongoing like in the past. The subject is читать, right, to read. So that'll be treated as a neuter singular, by the way, for agreement purposes. Моей сестре всегда нравилось. Ей всегда нравилось читать русскую литературу. Number 4, you'll like the borscht I made for you. Okay, this is future tense, right? You'll like it. It will be pleasing to you. And it's a one-time impression. So perfective. Тебе понравится борщ, который я тебе приготовил. Number 6, our friend likes everything. Everything is pleasing to her. Нашей подруге нравится все. Right? Все, all the stuff, right? Everything is singular. She even liked your pasta. Okay, so that's a one-time impression, sounds like. Ей понравилась даже твоя pasta. They like everyone. Okay, everyone is pleasing to them. Remember that все, all the people, is plural in Russian. Им все, sorry, present tense, I forgot about the tense. Им все нравится. Им все нравится. They like everyone. They even liked your mother-in-law. Right now, again, even your mother-in-law pleased them. Им понравилась даже твоя теща. Okay, let's look now at finally at the table for how to conjugate this verb. And there's nothing really unusual at all going on here, but since it's just a bit tricky and such a common verb, it's really worth including the full table. These are e-verbs. They're stem stressed. We can see that by looking at the infinitive. And they end in a labial consonant, v, right? Remember that those labials will mutate by adding a soft L, right? And that mutation only occurs in the ya form, right? So everything that makes an e-verb tick, we're seeing right here, nothing irregular whatsoever. But let's read through these tricky forms. Нравлюсь, нравишься, нравится, нравимся, нравитесь, нравится. Okay, and perfective, понравлюсь. Okay, remember that would be future tense, meaning I will be pleasing to, right? Future tense, one time, perfective. Понравишься, понравится, понравимся, понравитесь, понравится. Okay, now here, so far we've been, and usually actually you would use these terms with third person subjects, right? So you say things like, is kvass pleasing to you, right? Usually asking about things or people, right? And so the most common forms of this verb would be nravitsa, nravitsa, right? Those third person forms. But, it may come up that you want to say, I like you, right? Meaning, again, in the Russian, you are pleasing to me, right? We always have to kind of rethink the idiom. We can't rely on the English. Or what if you're, I don't know, meeting people at a party or something, and you want to say, oh, I like you. Well, that would be, you are pleasing to me, right? Okay, so that shows us situations in which we would need to know the full conjugation of this verb. Okay, so here are some examples. Ты мне нравишься. Again, you are pleasing to me, just like in English we'd say, I like you. And then follow-up question here. Я тебе нравлюсь. Я тебе нравлюсь, maybe, right? Do you like me? Right? Am I pleasing to you? Я ей не понравлюсь. She won't like me, right? I will not be pleasing to her. I will not make a good impression. Or я ей не понравился, past tense. She didn't like me, right? Imagine meeting her or whatever, and she didn't take a liking to you. Again, this kind of perfective first impression. She didn't like me. Okay, so there is just a couple of examples where we can use ты, я, or any other subject with this verb. Okay, so let's fill in a few blanks here. And again, these are a little bit tricky. Um, remember that if you're relying on the English, liking verb, it's the kiss of death, right? Because it obscures the Russian idiom. Okay, I don't think that he'll like me. What we're really saying is, I don't think that I will be pleasing to him. Future tense, first impression sounds like я не думаю, что я ему. Okay, я is our subject. Что я ему понравлюсь. Number two, they never liked us. Okay, никогда, that's an imperfective red flag. Our subject is мы, right? We were never pleasing to them. Мы им никогда не нравились, right? Plural form with мы. Do you like me? I like you. Okay. Я тебе нравлюсь. Я being the subject, right? Am I pleasing to you? Do I please you? Ты мне нравишься, right? Subject is ты. You'll like them and they'll like you. Okay, sounds like first impressions in the future. We'll use a perfective verb. Они тебе понравятся, а ты им понравишься. Right? The subjects are они and ты. Number five, it seems to me that they didn't like us. Again, the subject in the Russian is going to be мы, right? It seems to me that we did not please them. Okay, and it sounds like, again, a one-time impression. Мне кажется, что мы им не понравились. My sister will really like you. She likes everyone. Okay, you will really please my sister. Ты очень понравишься моей сестре. Everyone is pleasing to her. Ей все нравятся. Right, again, все means all people, literally. That's why we get the plural, right? Ей все нравятся. Okay, let's learn finally a few verbs having to do with trying. And so they're obviously close in meaning, but we'll try to draw a few distinctions. And two of these verbs, again, always include the reflexive particle, right? So let's look first at one that we've seen already in some examples. Пробовать, попробовать, that means to give something a try, right? So to try something in the sense of giving it a try, for example, with food or some activity maybe. So kind of a special sense of trying. For example, ты не хочешь квас попробовать? Do you not want to try the kvass? Right? Perfective there, like, right? Specific, hey, go give that kvass a try. Perfective. Да, я никогда его не пробовала. Yeah, I've never tried it. And so there's an at all example of imperfective, right? I've never tried it at all. I've never tried it. Никогда его не пробовала. Okay, the second two can be followed by infinitives, and there's a slight difference in meaning. Пытаться, попытаться means basically to make an attempt, right? To try in the sense of, oh, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll make an attempt. So you can think of that as kind of a neutral term, whereas стараться, постараться usually suggests more effort, right? Sort of like striving to do something in English, right? So if you're just going and trying to do something, use пытаться. If you're emphasizing some kind of an effort, use стараться. But remember that these two verbs always take the reflexive particle. And again, it's hard to really say why that's there, right? That sometimes happens with certain verbs. It's always used, and it's hard to really say what it's doing there, even in terms of like spontaneity, right? It's hard to really explain these two things in terms of spontaneity. So we just make peace with it and just learn the forms. Я попытаюсь ему позвонить, right? I'll try calling him. I'll do my best. I'll give it a try. Мы пытались открыть окно. Okay, we were trying to open the window, but it's not really some major undertaking. It's not like you're striving to open the window. But again, it's kind of up to the speaker, I guess, to choose, right? But again, just kind of these everyday examples. We'd usually use пытаться. Okay, now what about стараться? Я вижу, что ты очень стараешься. I can really see that you're trying, right? In the sense of you're really making an effort. And again, that's kind of being emphasized here. Now, another example, я постараюсь все сделать, right? I'll do my best. I'll really make an effort. I'll really try my hardest to see that everything gets done, сделать, right? Perfective. Okay, let's look at a couple of posters. Зимой и летом вкусно и полезно. Right? Did you know that ice cream is tasty and healthy in winter and summer? Right. So мороженое. Мороженое is вкусно, tasty, и полезно, and healthy зимой и летом, in winter and summer. So a question we might ask is, тебе нравится мороженое? Do you like ice cream? Is ice cream pleasing to you? Let's get an example with пробовать. Here's some квас. Квас. Что такое квас, right? What the heck is квас? What is квас? Что такое квас? Квас – традиционный русский напиток. It's a traditional Russian beverage. Его делают из хлеба. It's made from bread, or literally, they make it out of bread. They make it from bread. Ты пробовал квас? Have you tried квас? Хочешь его попробовать? Would you like to give it a try? Perfective. Тебе понравится, right? You'll like it. I predict that you'll like it, but you have to give it a try. It may be a bit of an acquired taste, but you should definitely give it a try. Okay, let's fill in some blanks for trying verbs. Have you ever tried caviar? Would you like to try it? Okay, so the first one is an imperfective question, right? We're asking if someone has ever done something at all. Вы пробовали икру? Okay, would you like to give it a try? Хочешь его попробовать? Perfective, right? Do you want to try it? We really tried, but we didn't manage to solve the problem. Okay, sounds like some real effort went into this. Let's use стараться. Now we're referring to a completed attempt made in the past, and we see that in the end they didn't solve the problem. So we're talking perfective here. Мы очень постарались, но не сумели решить задачу. Right, постарались. Okay, now again here you could say старались, meaning if you're really emphasizing this ongoing protracted effort, right? But anyway, so мы очень старались, or мы очень постарались, но не сумели решить задачу. Number 3, I'll try to make borscht tomorrow. Okay, it sounds like just an everyday attempt. It's not a whole lot of melodrama here, right? Я попытаюсь приготовить борщ завтра. Я попытаюсь, right? Perfective, one-time event. Number 4, I always strive to do everything on time. Okay, again, striving, effort is being emphasized. This is always happening. It's present tense. Я всегда стараюсь сделать все вовремя. I always try to get everything done on time. Number 5, will you be able to help me? Ты сможешь мне помочь? I don't know, but I'll do my best. Okay, sounds like a real sincere effort. Let's use постараться, right? Because it sounds like a one-time future event. Не знаю, но я постараюсь. Я постараюсь. Okay, let's look at a few more discussion items, right? Asking people first, have they tried something using the imperfective, right? We're asking, have they tried it ever at all? And then a follow-up question asking them if they'd like to give it a try, right? A one-time specific try, right? Like trying a drink or something. For example, ты пробовал квас или кефир или творог, which is Russian cottage cheese, или черный хлеб, right? Russian black bread. All right, so these are all going into the accusative. Okay, or we could ask, would you like to give these things a try? Ты хочешь попробовать икру или борщ или коньяк, right? Brandy. или шампанское. Okay, so that does it for today's lesson. So some very useful verbs there, especially nravится. That's definitely one verb you want to learn for sure. The verbs for trying are also quite useful. Um, so that does it for now, at least for our coverage of the dative um, uh, in this chapter. We're moving on now to some, and also reflexive particle, right? We've been spending the last couple of days on how to use verbs with the reflexive particle. And so the last two lessons of this chapter, we'll talk about imperative forms. We'll finally learn in detail about how to form the imperative, what it's used for. Um, and then in chapter 4, we'll move on to new victories. By the way, I might mention that in chapter 4, we're tackling verbs of motion, which is a very tricky topic. We're going to look at it in a lot of detail, very thoroughly. And so while it may be a rather difficult topic, it's also a very interesting one. So a lot to look forward to or possibly dread, depending on your whether you like this kind of stuff. Okay, anyway, until next time, до свидания, товарищи.